Welcome to the Franchise Woman Podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zorkel Profiles. You may have noticed that Tracy Kawa, my co host, is missing today. She is on holiday with her fiance, so hopefully she's having a great time. We're going to have a wonderful interview today. I have a special guest, Tracy Tilson. Tracy is the president and founder of Tilson PR, a full service public relations firm recognized for its strategic approach and measurable results. With years of experience and deep understanding of the media landscape, Tracy combines critical insights with daily engagement across top tier media, blogs, and social platforms to craft communication strategy that truly resonate. She leads a team of seasoned PR professionals and directs the creation and execution of integrated media relations campaigns. Tracy has built Tilson PR into a nationally respected agency grounded in her core personal brand values: tenacity, creativity, integrity, and gratitude, which of course I want to learn everything about, Tracy. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate it.
I'm really excited to speak with you for tons of reasons. I am not a PR person. I'm not a marketing person. So I know I'm going to learn a ton from you, as will our audience. But one of the questions I had for you is around this idea that we can do everything marketing wise through technology.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on AI and all of this technology that we have?
Yeah, technology is so critical in so many ways. I mean, we use the resources. We have, resources that we use for media, for all different kinds of things. And of course, AI is quickly becoming a huge part of everyone's life, and as it should, as a tool. But it gets back to, it's right now because it is so new, and we're all kind of exploring and seeing how that's all going to work. But what you can't get away from is just, the relationships that you build outside of technology. It's critical. I mean, it's something where those can help facilitate those by introducing you to people and finding better ways to communicate, all that kind. So technology is totally a tool that we've harnessed and will continue to harness, but it gets back to, so many things as far as just being the tried and true relationships that you build and how do you grow those in our world, especially with reporters, with collaborators, with influencers, with things that will help our clients, our franchisees, get brand awareness, which is a key thing for them. Everyone just wants brand awareness for what they're doing, how they're doing it, when they're doing it, and where they're doing it.
Such an excellent point, especially when you're talking about PR. It
Mm.
really is a relational business. Some of what I was thinking as you were talking is this human element. Because of technology, I don't think we're as good at that human element as we were before.
Mm.
It's networking or going to conferences or asking someone out for lunch just to have a cup of coffee or whatever, right? I don't think we're as good at that as we once were, but it really is an important part. But the other part of that, as you were talking, I'm thinking, can someone develop a relationship through technology? Through,
Hmm.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Years ago, people wrote letters. You were building a
Mm.
relationship.
Yeah.
You told
Mhm.
stories at a camp.
Yes.
Tell me more about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Rebecca, because we have to. I mean, it used to be when I first started too, and up until we still do it, but it used to be we'd pick up the phone and call. If you're calling a producer, if you want to get a client on a morning show, if you want to get a story, but pitch to the editor or the reporter in that market, you'd call them. You'd call them and talk to them, and you'd pitch it. You'd pitch whatever you're talking about. They could hear your energy, your enthusiasm, but that's a lot of that has gone away now. So, but what's so important is even more important is that you know about who you're talking to. So in our world, if we're pitching a reporter and we can't call them, but we've got to email them to build a relationship, we better know what that reporter writes about, what they're interested in, what they want to hear about, so we don't waste their time. And that's how you start to form a relationship, is by your interest. If you're really interested in something,
Oh, yeah.
if you're interested in a person, you're interested in a product, you're interested in a company, learning more so you can build a relationship, you have got to know about it so that you can have those conversations. And those will be through technology because everyone is doing through email, but it separates you from the whole pack. If
Mhm.
you've got something where you've done a little bit of research and your subject line is something that's personal that they can relate to, they see that you've got some knowledge about who they are, what they do. And that's critical. I mean, I think then you start to build. Then you can start the relationship. They see that there's some there. So I think when you're dealing in our world with media, with whoever we're outreaching to as kind of the gatekeepers for our information, we have to know what we're talking about. We have to know what we're dealing with.
Wow, thank you for those examples because that is so true. Reminds me of someone that's in the franchise space, and her focus is much like you in terms of relationship, right? Um, and I'm born and raised in Switzerland, and of course the Swiss are known for phenomenal chocolate, and I'm an expert on chocolate. And I, in passing, said something about it at an event. And she sent me this chocolate that
Mhm.
was made in the Ozarks, you know, in small batches.
Yes.
She took away from that conversation something personal about me and then sent me a gift. I'm not saying a gift is the only way to build a relationship, but she took interest in
Mm.
things that I was excited about.
You know what she did, Rebecca? She listened.
Hmm.
That starts with everything, to listen. Like when you're doing, like when we do interview clients or we're interviewing something to get a story, you've got to listen because it's very easy to ask questions and kind of go on to the next one. But they might say something, someone might say something like the chocolate, and it's just enough. Wait, then you stop everything. Tell me more about that. Tell me more
Hmm.
about what whatever. But that's how relationships are, absolutely formed is through interest. You know enough about them that you can ask questions. And I think people just don't pay attention. People don't pay attention to people anymore. It feels like a lot of times, you know what I mean? It's all so rushed and busy.
Yeah.
And if you can be that person that really just listens and gets information and then has the right response, it's a good starting block. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I love this conversation. It's so true. It's so true. We're all so self-absorbed and busy that our listening skills have also gotten not so great.
Well, yeah, things have changed in the last couple of years. I mean, it
They
used to be,
have.
as far as meeting in the office, face to face. I mean, and now with Zoom, which has been a blessing in so many ways, being able to have these kind of conversations and things. But it's different. You have to really work hard to kind of keep the personal.
Keep it top of mind.
Mhm.
Which brings us to another topic. I am really curious about you and interested in learning more about you. Can you go back to the beginning? Because you've been doing this for a while. How did
I
you get into PR? Was there like a moment where you decided, boop, I think I'm going to go this direction? Did it evolve? Tell me the backdrop.
Yeah, so I was in radio out of college, and I wanted to also maybe get into television, bro. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I got into radio. And I'd also wanted to play polo, and I could never afford it. The sport. We grew up on horses, but I couldn't afford it. Obviously, it's an expensive sport. But I used to hang out at the polo club in Boca Raton, Florida, and just kind of hang out and try to help out if I could. Did they need any help with anything? Just doing anything I could for trade, almost just to be around the horses. And the opportunity came up to present to the owner that I could do press for him for the club. And I went in with my I'll never forget that because he was a seasoned oil man that had this club. And I sat in there with my little chart, what I could do from PR. And they brought me on and with my own company. I left the radio and my deal with him was 50% of the time I worked for Polo and 50% of the time I could try to get new clients. Gave me a little office in the back of the Polo Stadium. And it was the start, and I will never forget the first breakfast I had when I was no longer an employee of the radio station, which was a phenomenal job. But I always thought if this doesn't work, I can always go back to that. I'll just never forget the first breakfast I had with this little polo group, and I'm sitting there going, "This is I have my business card." I'm like, "This is fabulous. This is like, I'll never forget the thrill of that." I had not much money, but it didn't matter. It was like, you know what, this is going to work. So that's how it started with slowly just adding clients after that, all different kinds of clients. Some of our larger have been staples. We handled their whole back to school campaign. We work with a lot of, different kind of clients. One thing begets another, and that's where relationships come in because most everything we have is referral. So someone will leave one company and bring us with to another. And I've had a great team over the years. Boutique, we're not a large firm. It's always been boutique by design. And it's just been a great, great, interesting clients and all very diversified. And because it is referral, it's been, a very diversified roster. But I've loved it, and you grow and you learn along the way, and it's been one of those perfect industry for me.
It's almost like you had a moment where you got, this is meant for me. This is where I'm supposed to be. It wasn't like you set a goal out there and say, this is who I'm going to become. But the attraction to polo and horses and all of those things, you discovered your own purpose, let's call it, right? Your own meant to be.
It feels like that, Rebecca. It feels like that. And it was, I think in all, as all entrepreneurs feel and know, you have to be sometimes just bold. You just have to go and you have to be bold, whether you know what's going to happen or not. You just have to be brave. You have to get the courage, I guess is a word, to do the things sometimes that it'd be easier not to do. I left a job that was really great job, high paying, and I just reached a point where it's just like I needed to do this, so I did. But it was it's something that I think everyone has it in them, and it was a moment, and it was a direction I went into that I didn't expect.
For sure. For sure. So you mentioned the word entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And obviously, I work with entrepreneurs or what we call franpreneurs. They're
Yes.
franchisees that are entrepreneurs every day and have studied them for 30, almost 32 years. So I find the thought process of entrepreneurs and what makes them who
Mm.
they are fascinating. So, do you believe everyone can be an entrepreneur? More importantly, do you believe you were always meant to be an entrepreneur, a creative person, an innovator?
For other people, I think it depends. There's also a it's not for they say for not for the faint-hearted, and it really is true that it depends on how much, you can be an entrepreneur partially with something else on the side to support. It all depends on a personal situation as far as how much risk, because sometimes there is a risk in starting when you're starting a business. So I think that that's a personal decision. I think for me, I always felt creative. I never really thought in college I would have my own business. I thought like I said, was going to get into broadcast or into something else. But it feels like that's creativity, is just it fuels everything and it fuels possibilities and opportunities. And it's like once it starts, you really can't put it back in the box. You just want to keep seeing things and doing things in that light. So it's been my path. Wasn't the path, like I said, to begin, but it turned into the path. And then it becomes, it's hard work too. You start and for years you might be, at a certain point where you don't see a lot of growth or you don't see, but you just stay. That's where the tenacity comes in. You have to be tenacious. I mean, it's one of those things where I think tenacity is just hanging in there and doing and trying and being innovative and coming back to tenacity, hanging on to it with your claws. But
Yeah.
it's important.
That's an excellent point, and it is one of your four core principles or values that you run your organization by, that you must have tenacity to be successful, especially as an entrepreneur, to overcome those obstacles and hang in there when things are difficult to get up every day and do what needs to be done.
Mm.
That requires tenacity, and that's a muscle, in my opinion, that we can build. But if we expect instant gratification, not happening, right?
No, that's so true. And you're right, it is a muscle. And it's one of those things that people have to realize you are going to have those days as an entrepreneur. If you've got your own business and stuff, there's going to be those great days and there's going to be days that aren't. And it's just, you've got to realize that that's all part and parcel of it. And you have to just be able to just see long term or see, pretty much it works out too. Day to day is just getting through the day the best you can do and doing what you think has to be done. I think those are the things that are important.
Now that we've kind of hit on your four primary principles, I'd like to dig more deeply into each of them. I can think as an entrepreneur myself, times I had to push through the tears, even like, what am I thinking, right? Do you have a story similar where you had to rely on your tenacity to push through something?
I mean, I can think big picture, luckily there hasn't been crazy upsets, but there's been moments with either clients or, things that have come up that all of a sudden would just like, beyond beyond my grasp on how to handle, whether it be something that someone else did, where I'm like, oh my word, this is not right. I have to fix this, and wasn't sure how to fix it, how to go about fixing. And I think that's just, in general, sometimes you get thrown those things like for the first time, like where do you
Mhm.
go? It could be a staff thing, it could be like I said, a client thing, more likely a client thing, and you just have to really focus on what's the best course here? How do I solve this? And it's not, sometimes it happens smoothly, you can fix it, sometimes not. So everything is just so in our world is so different and varied that there's not one specific thing. I just know there's been moments and you just have to go back to trying to figure out and doing the right thing, you know, and just
So true.
hmm
It's interesting as you're talking, it was this is like what I envisioned for you was this, we got to get through this, we got to solve this. That tenacity likely turned into some creativity also, meaning an interesting way to solve the problem or an interesting way to approach a particular thing. So I'm wondering if tenacity can turn into creativity for you.
100%, Rebecca, and it has to, because sometimes you get into the situation like, what would be the solution? What's the solution? We have to think of an out of box, solution or something that comes up that we start to do something differently because of that situation. So something happens in the workplace or with a client that can't happen again. So what's our solution? So you come up with a new process, a new
Mhm.
program, something else that helps fix it so it doesn't happen again. So you're absolutely right. It's never, it's always that kind of that whole learning curve that think is over when you first, the learning curve continues your whole life. There's always something that you can learn, and that should be embraced though, because that's where again the creativity does come in, and it's something where in our world, again, from a PR perspective, we have to be creative. We have to be able to come up with ideas for our clients, and we have franchisees too, that what's going to make them different, like what can we bring to the table creatively that's not normal, that will help them for brand awareness, for traffic, for whatever it might be. So creativity is the biggest part of our world for being successful, because anyone can write a press release or a media alert or call an influencer, but what's the story behind it? What is it what you want them to do? And that's where creativity comes in.
I'm so glad you pointed that out, especially for the world of franchising, because in the world of franchising, some of these businesses are boring businesses, right?
Mm,
Home services, business services, food. So you really do need to bring in creativity to create a differentiation for those franchisors and for those franchisees to show how your concept, which on the face is kind of boring, right? So it really does put a lot of pressure on our PR firm to come up with creative ways to tell a story about a business that kind of looks like an average kind of business.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly where we get back to the questions, being curious, finding, finding the right information, asking, finding trends, finding things that are what's happening in life that we can parallel, can bring over that might affect this industry that you wouldn't even know about. So a lot of that is digging to find the nuggets, so we call them, that are really interesting about any kind of a business. Maybe there's a trend that's happened that no one even knows about, or something that's a regular business that people wouldn't even have an inkling that that's part of what they do or they could do. So a lot of that, Rebecca, comes from back to what we talked about before, is asking the questions, being curious, finding out things about that industry, collaborating with other industries that are maybe would be kind of elevate both of them to do collaborations. I mean, there's so much creativity that you have to put into it as far as finding things that make it pop.
Thank you for sharing that. So technically, you're a nugget hunter.
Yeah. Well, that's when we're trying to find stories and find interesting things. I think we think in headlines, right? Like, what's the headline that's going to
Yeah.
get this company like noticed for media and typically consumer. If the consumers are going after consumers, if it's working for media, a lot of times that headline will be something that will be of interest to consumers too. So that's what we do our pitches around, our angles around. When we talk to influencers, if we want them to come into one of our businesses, we've got kind of that all baked into it as well. So it's really and truly part and parcel, is this whole finding the nuggets, so to speak. But from there you can go, and from nuggets then you build creative programs. Like if you get an interesting idea about something, then what about if we take it? That's where the possibilities come in. Let's build it this way. Let's, do something now where we can add this to it and layer on this and maybe bring a cause related. Maybe in this market, we could bring in, some organization, charity, that all part of the PR mix that helps the company get brand awareness.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I want to dig more deeply in a minute around the, influencers, which is a big deal
Hmm.
right now. So I want you to speak to that. But I
Yes.
want to first uh, talk about the other two nuggets, principles that you run your business by, including integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you my first thought when I thought about that. When I think of integrity, it's not just doing what's right and best by someone, but it's self-integrity, meaning I am authentic and I am
Mm-hmm.
consistent and congruent with who I am, whether it's a brand, a human being, whatever. But can you elaborate on what you mean by integrity?
I think integrity is doing what we say we're going to do. And in
Mhm.
a business sense for us, that usually means over servicing. So we say we're going to do this and we get these opportunities, so we over service. But the integrity is that this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. I mean, I've turned potential clients away because I didn't agree with what they stood for. So it's also, it's our reputation as well, our reputation with reporters, it's our reputation with the client, it's reputation with me, with collaborators, influencers. So integrity is everything. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. It's got to be understood all the way around. And of course, we have, this is what we're going to do for our clients. We have it laid out, but it's really important that we stick to everything that we say we're going to do. We do it in the most factual, transparent way, that is absolutely you can feel good about. I mean, that will stay with you forever. If you're going to say, and I think that's what we've always believed in, and you have to be that way. You have to say if something comes to you and doesn't feel right, and say no. We're just no, not going to even touch it. Doesn't feel right. I don't believe in that. We don't believe in that. We don't think that media is going to, it's just not working for us. So you just have to be honest with yourself, your team, and with the clients, and saying that's just not where we want to be. So I
Yeah,
think I think that's really important, is that's got to be such a core thing that it's almost so intuitive. I mean, it's just got to be so intuitive. You just like, no way. This is how we stand. This is what we do. And have that platform. Mhm.
Yeah, so it really is twofold then. It's that personal integrity that
Mhm.
this business, this
Mhm.
individual, this philosophy goes against the grain to who I am and who my company is, Tilson PR.
Yes.
But also the doing what I say I'm going to do, and finishing that project on time and fulfilling those agreements and telling the story in a way that's congruent and consistent. So it's integrity at two levels, one that's more external and one that's more internal almost.
It is. It totally is. And it's something where it has to be, it's almost like you don't think about it that much because it's just a part of who you are. I mean, it's part of who
Yeah,
hopefully it comes across to everyone and we don't have to talk about it much because it's there. It shows us we are there to protect, we're there to, all the things that we're there to do for everybody. So I think it's just front and center.
let's
It's
get to
probably
the
Yeah, it's probably the least talked about because it's there. I mean, it's such a core,
yeah.
creativity is something you kind of manufacture and you are, and tenacity is part, but integrity is like right at the very root of it
It's
all.
core. It
Yeah, it's
really
a
is
core.
core
It is. It is.
for sure. Let's go to the fourth principle that you
Uh-huh.
run your business by, which is gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I love that word. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
more. Tell me more why gratitude is a foundation of what you do and why it's so important.
Yeah, gratitude. I mean, first of all, people respect, feel, relate, give you feedback on gratitude. Gratitude is something they can feel if it's real and not. I personally think it's the strongest thing in my life. And for a business, it's so strong. And I gave you the example, or I'll give you the example of our thank you notes. We write thank you notes, handwritten thank you notes with stamps, a bunch of them. And it's like one of our mandates to do that. And we have someone who handles just doing part of her role is to write the thank you notes. And we get thank you on our thank you notes. People send back little notes, and who we'll send them to are obviously any vendors that have done a really great job for us, any media who've done something really meaningful for us, influencers, anyone, and a lot of people don't expect to get them at all. So it's one of those things where it's been really, really a huge part of kind of like this whole gratitude, almost like displayed
Mhm.
deal in our company. And I just feel gratitude, I feel grateful every day for the company, for our clients, and I think it's for our team, our great team that we've got. And I think that's where if you come from that place, it's such a softening of the heart
Mhm.
when you're dealing with people, when you're getting back to talking about relationships being so absolutely critical. That is one of the, if not the biggest builder of relationships, is the gratitude that you translate into that.
Yeah. Um, I so agree with this. And I think at the core of every human being is a desire to be seen, to be significant.
Yes.
And a thank you note or a compliment or something that offers, I see you, you're special this way, you really made a difference, I truly appreciate you, and vice versa, where we appreciate everything that this relationship has brought to the table, even if it's just a delightful conversation. I got off a call, 4-hour call yesterday with someone I hadn't talked to in a while. And both of us are getting off the phone with this unbelievable
Mm,
softening of the heart that you talked about,
mm,
and
mhm.
this gratitude because we
Yeah.
both felt heard and
Yes.
seen and appreciated. And we couldn't stop saying, oh, thank you for calling. This really
Oh, it's
inspired.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a wonderful thing.
That's like it fills you up. That kind of like emotion that you get after that is, you can stay on that for a while. It's such a strong thing. But it gets back to in our world of just relationship building. You
Relationships.
have to do that for, again, we do it to our reporters, we do it to our producers, we do it to our, collaborators because it's really that important. Promotional directors for radio across the country. We have a steady stream of thank you notes going out to them. So it's just really important.
What a wonderful lesson. I hope everybody's listening here. Um, I want to move on to this idea of storytelling.
Mhm.
Um, A, how do people do that?
Uh-huh.
And specifically, how do we tell the story through others like influencers, right? So maybe
Mhm.
you could address what creates a good story and how do we get others also to tell the story,
Yes.
including our referral partners and our clients and influencers.
Yeah, we have to dictate the messaging on that and storytelling, like we said, getting back to getting the messaging, it comes through listening, through asking questions to get the information that we even want to do a story on, and then creating things around it. So, for example, we created Women in Franchising National Appreciation Day every October 14th. We started that. Tilson came up with the idea, and that's we'll be in our fourth year. But that gave us right there, Rebecca, a whole platform of storytelling. From that, we actually went and actually create things now, stories about different franchisees, women in franchising. So we sometimes for storytelling have to create the platforms that give us the stories that we need, especially in our world. So I think that's really important too, is that's how creativity can work with storytelling, is come up with things that then you can almost dive off of to get information and bring people in. So a lot of PR is that, is coming up with like, what else could we create? We want to address, this again for us it was women in franchising. How do we recognize and honor? And we've created a whole program around that. We've created, information profiles, got other collaborators, got things involved. And so the storytelling becomes from the root of creating ideas from whatever we want to create, and then it's just basic storytelling is just collecting that information and making sure that is given to everybody that we touch in the same way, the vision, whatever the elements are, so that media gets the same message, our influencers get the same message if they're working on one particular client. It's not fragmented. It's a storytelling of what we want to get across to them, whether that be a grand opening, whether that be a new product, whether that be whatever it might be. So it's very important that our storytelling can be elaborate. It can be, but more importantly, it's factual, it's for the client, and it tells their whatever is important to them. We do a lot of thought leadership with clients. We actually create that's all factual, that's interviewing them, finding, what's interesting in their life, writing the pieces, and then submitting it to top tier media like Forbes and entrepreneurs so that they hear that story too from clients. So it's all different kind of, venues as far as the storytelling, whether it be straight
Mhm.
up, whether it be content that we're creating, but at the end of the day, it all has to have some of the same elements to keep it unified.
So this story comes from listening and then curating based on facts and information a very clear storyline that can then be consistently communicated no matter what the platform is, including influencers and those kinds. So it
And it's
really,
changed though. It's changed a bit. Like that message might change. The format might change, right? The format
yeah,
how we get to media might be a little bit different if we're going off of some program or some whatever our messaging might be. But it has to be kind of a consistent, but just different formats.
different format,
Influencer,
yeah.
yeah.
Especially if it's a different audience, I would think that would be super important. That really helped me visualize when you told that, because I think about a story, there is a plot and there's the villain and there's the hero and then there's a moral to the story. It really is kind of a very clear story that is being told. It may be told a little bit different depending on the platform, but the story is the same in many
And
ways.
yes, and we have to get the story. We have to get what's interesting. What you would find interesting, we need to make sure we get that out of that you or media or someone, anyone just in general that doesn't know about whatever the client might be and needs to find, we need to find the right story, sub headline. We need what was so interesting about this, and then we create the story from that. So it's a building process, but it all comes down to getting information and asking questions and getting
Yeah.
color and things like that.
Wow, what a process.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Now, I hate to do this, but we're coming up on the top of the hour, and I do have two more questions. Question number one is how do people learn more about you, Tracy, and Tilson PR? How would they get hold of you?
Yes, they could just the best thing is my email is ttilson@tilsonpr.com. That's the easiest way to do it, just through email. Of course, we've got a website and we've got LinkedIn, but usually email is the best because I respond right away to that. Um, and yeah, that's the best way.
Love it. Love it. And then my final question for you is if you could write a headline for your career so far, something that captures the essence of your story, what would it say?
Everything's an opportunity.
Wow. Yeah.
That's how I feel about every day after all this time, like even with other things I've got going, everything there's the possibilities, but everything is an opportunity, to come in and either make something happen. Um, you just have to look at things as opportunities. And, some make it, some don't, but you have to go through that filter.
I just put that filter on. Everything is an opportunity. And I'm walking around in my future and I'm seeing all kinds of golden nuggets, right?
Yay!
Right?
Good.
Wow, that's
Good.
amazing. So
Good.
thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing your wisdom and your heart with us. I really, really appreciate you carving out times. You're quite an inspiration. I'm going to be listening to this podcast a few times because you put some nuggets in there that really will make a difference in our storytelling and in our listening skills and our relationship building skills that we have. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rebecca. It was my pleasure. Have a good rest of your day.
Will do. And those of you listening in today, make sure to comment, like, share, and of course, subscribe to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. We'll see you next week on another episode.